Good morning, grade 9. Here is Act 5, Scene 1, Part 2. So if we remember from Part 1, we're back in the Duke's court. Theseus and Hippolyta have been married. Demetrius and Helen have been married, as well as Lysander and Hermia. And all of the couples have gathered after the wedding ceremony to eat, obviously feast, have a banquet, and obviously to watch the entertainment that is to take place before they all retire to their rooms. So Hippolyta was very against the actors, the workmen, being mocked or derided in any way. She didn't want them to perform if they weren't good. And obviously Philostrate had said that they really are very poor actors, and she didn't want to see them wounded or emotionally wounded, hurt, mocked or belittled in any way. But Theseus was adamant on having the actors do their play, as he felt that he almost owed it to anyone who wanted to honor him something to listen to them. So that is where we're picking up from, and he's told Philostrate that he wants the play to begin. So Philostrate went off to tell the actors the play needs to start now, and he's entering the scene once more. And he says, "So please your grace, the prologue is addressed." Now in Shakespearean times, the person who read the prologue, it's sort of an introduction to the whole play, they would typically be dressed in these black robes that have sort of a crown of leaves on their head, and they'd hold this scroll which they would then read, almost this introduction to the story to tell the people what the play is going to be about. And he's saying the prologue is addressed, so the prologue is ready to begin. And the prologue here is Quince, and he's going to stand there in character as the prologue, introducing the play to everyone. And Theseus says, "Let him approach." So they have a flourish of trumpets playing, and then Quince comes in as the prologue. But unfortunately, Quince ruins the sense, the good sense of his prologue by pausing in all the wrong places. So his prologue does not make sense because he ruins the punctuation completely by pausing incorrectly, which you'll hear now. "If we offend, it is with our good will, that you should think we come not to offend, but with good will, to show our simple skill, that is the true beginning of our end. Consider then, we come but in despite. We do not come as minding to content you. Our true intent is all for your delight. We are not here that you should here repent you. The actors are at hand, and by their show you shall know all, and you are like to know, that you are like to know." So all of the punctuation rules that he should have applied here in order to read the passage properly for it to make sense has been disregarded completely. Obviously, being one of the workmen, an apprentice, he's not a learned man, so not very well educated, and either in his nerves or his lack of skill or lack of education, he has now ruined the prologue completely, that it didn't make sense to anyone. When he's talking about the actors at hand by their show, we'll be demonstrating what it's about. The actors were required to mime the outline of the plot, and this was called a dumb show, dumb meaning silent. And Theseus, obviously Theseus being very well educated, picking up that the punctuation was all off there, and that the whole prologue's just been destroyed. He says, "This fellow doth not stand upon points." So he doesn't bother to punctuate correctly. And Lysander joins in to comment, and he says, "He hath rid, he has discharged or spoken his prologue like a rough colt, so a horse that has not been broken in. He knows not the stop. A good moral, my lord. It is not enough to speak, but to speak true." So it's not just about speaking, you have to speak properly, make sense of what you're saying. So everyone in the audience that are there in Theseus's company start commenting between each other about the play. and the way that these actors are continuing the play. And Hippolytus says, indeed, he hath played on this prologue like a child on a recorder. So a recorder being a flute. So he's spoken this prologue as someone very inexperienced, someone playing around with a musical instrument, a sound, so he's made some kind of sound, but not in government, so not under control. So nothing made sense there. And Theseus says his speech was like a tangled chain. Nothing impaired, so nothing undamaged. And that is, it was capable of making perfect sense if he had spoken it correctly, but it was all disordered. Okay, so they've started this conversation between each other now, commenting as the play continues. And then he says, who is next? So entering with trumpets, as in a dumb show, bottom enters as Pyramus, flute as Thisbe, snout enters as wool, and starveling as moonshine, snug as lion. And then Quince continues with his prologue saying, gentle, so ladies and gentlemen, perchance you wonder at this show, but wander on, till truth make all things plain. This man is Pyramus, if you would know. This beauteous lady Thisbe is certain, so he's introducing all the characters. This man with lime and rough cast doth present, so represent, wool, that vile wool, which did these lovers sunder, so separate, and through wool's chink, poor souls they are content to whisper. At the which let no man wonder. This man with lanthorn, dog, and bush of thorn presenteth moonshine. For if you will know, by moonshine did these lovers think no scorn. So the lovers were quite willing to meet at Ninus' tomb, there to woo, so to speak to each other, to share their love in the words they spoke to one another. This grisly beast, so ugly beast, which lion height is called by name, the trusty Thisbe coming first by night, did scare away, or rather did affright, scare. He says the same thing twice in order for it to rhyme. And as she fled, her mantle, her cloak, she did fall, she did drop, which lion vile with bloody mouth did stain. Anon comes Pyramus, sweet youth and tall, and finds his trusty Thisbe's mantle slain. And now this prologue begins to be filled with many almost repetitions of alliteration, and it's just an excess of these B sounds that he's trying to use to promote the speech, and it's actually almost jarring on the ear. He says, whereat with blade, with bloody blameful blade, he bravely broached his boiling bloody breast. So he's saying he bravely opened, broached. So it's Quince's odd way of saying he was stabbed. And Thisbe, tarrying in mulberry shade, so waiting in the shade of a mulberry tree, his dagger drew and died. For all the rest let lion, moonshine, wool, and lovers twain at large at length discourse, while here they do remain. Now everyone exits the scene except Wall. And Theseus begins commenting with Demetrius, and he says, I wonder if the lion beater speaks. I wonder if the lion's going to speak. It's just an aside comment, and Demetrius answers saying, no wonder, my lord. One lion may, when many asses do. So he's talking about basically mocking the actors, calling them idiots, and saying that it is very likely that a lion could talk if so many idiots are also able to speak in one play. And Wall comments and says, in this same interlude, in the same play, it doth befall, it doth happen, that I, one snout by name, present a wall, and such a wall as I would have you think, that had in it a crannied, a narrow hole or chink, through which the lovers, Pyramus and Thisbe, did whisper often very secretly, this loam, this rough cast, and this stone. So he's talking about his costume and how it represents bricks, rough cast, and loam, so bricks that are made of clay, sand, and straw mixed together, doth show that I am that same wall. The truth is so, and this the cranny is, right and sinister, through which the fearful lovers are to whisper. Now, we've spoken previously about how important it was for the audience to also be allowed to make sense of the play and guess the certain elements that are being represented. And in their worry that things will be misinterpreted, the workers have taken away all of the illusions that are being made in this play, and they've over explained everything, and Waller's just done that. It's a very unnecessary explanation of what he's supposed to represent. And Theseus says, would you desire lime and hair to speak better? So would you prefer that your walls were plastered with a mixture of lime and animal hair? So almost mocking inquiry, and Demetrius says, it is the wittiest partition wall that I ever heard discourse, my lord. So that I ever heard talking. He's talking about this is the funniest wall I've ever heard speak. And Bottom enters now as Permus, and Theseus says, Permus draws near the wall. Silence. So be quiet. I want to hear this. And Permus, now obviously Bottom being very melodramatic, is trying to put all of his passion into acting into the speech, and he says, O grim-looked night, O night with hue so black, O night which ever art when day is not, O night, alack, 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 I fear my Thisbe's promises forgot. And thou, O wall, O sweet, O lovely wall, that standst between her father's ground and mine, thou wall, O sweet and lovely wall, show me thy chink, to blink through with mine eyne, so my eyes. And then wall, obviously moving, shows the chink, and he says, thanks, courteous wall, Jove shield thee well for this. So almost blessed, I hope you're blessed for these actions. But what see I? No Thisbe do I see. O wicked wall, now starts blaming the wall, through whom I see no bliss. Cursed be thy stones for thus deceiving me. So very overly done little soliloquy there to this wall, overly dramatic. And Theseus says, the wall, methinks, being sensible, being conscious, should curse again, so should curse in return. Now Bottom can't resist breaking character here, just to correct the Duke, to correct the king, and explain himself. So this would have been very humorous for the audience to see. And he says, no, in truth, sir, he should not. So he stops the whole play just to correct the Duke on the comment that he's making. And he says, deceiving me is Thisbe's cue. She is to enter now, and I'm to spy her through the wall. You shall see it will fall pat, so it will happen exactly as I told you. Yonder she comes. So he's explaining as an aside to the king. And then Flute enters as Thisbe. Thisbe says, O wall, full often hast thou heard my moans, for parting my fair Permus and me. My cherry lips have often kissed thy stones with lime and hair knit up in thee. And Permus says, I see a voice. Now will I to the chink, so obviously you should say I hear a voice, to spy if I can hear my Thisbe's face. So it should be if I can see my Thisbe's face. So getting the lines mixed up. Thisbe. And then Thisbe answers, my love, thou art my love, I think. And Permus answers, think what thou wilt. I am thy lover's grace, I am your gracious lover. And like Lamander am I trusty still, and I like Helen till the fates me kill, says Thisbe. Permus answers, not Shafalus to Procrus was so true. Now in these three lines here, we can see how poorly educated and poorly prepared the actors are, because they are mishandling all of the classical names that have been put in or alluded to in this play. So when they're talking about Lamander, it's meant to be Leander, who was a famous lover of the beautiful hero, the priestess of Venus. Helen of Troy, we know, was not faithful at all. She started the Trojan War, so Flute probably means hero. Shafalus and Procrus should be Cephalus and Procrus, who were legendary tragic lovers renowned for their faithfulness. So in making all of these mistakes, not only do they look silly, they're actually ruining the references for the play. Thisbe says, as Shafalus to Procrus, I to you. And Permus says, Oh, kiss me through the hole of this vile wall. Thisbe answers, I kiss the wall's hole, not your lips at all. Pyramus says, wilt thou at Ninny's too meet me straight away? So Pyramus Bottom is making the same mistake that he was corrected for in rehearsal, calling it Ninny's tomb when it should be Ninnis's tomb. So the actor's performance so far is not going very well. They really are making a fool of themselves in the way they're trying to present this, being overly dramatic and seeming so fancy when everything they do really highlights and pinpoints their flaws. And Thisbe answers, tide life, so come life. Tide death, come death, I come without delay. And Wall says, thus have I, Wall my part discharged so, and being done, thus Wall away doth go. So then they all exit the scene.